Hey guys, what's up? Eddie Alho here with KissAnalog.com. Today I just wanted to do a quick review on the Siglent SDS1202X oscilloscope. I've had it for over a year now. I got it in July of 2017. The price, Amazon, was just under $450. It was a damaged box. Well, from Amazon, you know, damaged box, it said, I think you can trust them. Anyway, so I did. I bought the scope, saved $100. Normally $550, $560 on Amazon today. So if you're looking for a Christmas present, this is an awesome gift. I was just doing a review, doing some testing on this audio amplifier board. Kind of warm. Looking at FFT, looking at the audio signal. I have a dual signal coming in here, sine wave, and just looks at some intermodulation, distortion, and it just occurred to me how cool this scope is, and the thought of calling these introductory scopes, I just thought how crazy. It's a 200 megahertz scope, 2-channel, 1 gigasample per second. It's got this super phosphor oscilloscope technology. Basically, it just has this really cool phosphor thing that it does. I'll show you pictures of some of these things. But has, was it 14 megapoints memory? Deep memory. So that's deep memory. When you get up over 10 meg, when you're up into 10 meg and above, that's deep memory. That's, you know, 1 meg below. That's what I'd call an entry level scope. And I've got a thing on the 10 best entry level scopes, $300 or less. Tektronix, Keysight, you know, some of the big name scopes, Roto Schwartz, they have entry level scopes that they hold back on memory, hold back on some of the other options, and they're still, you know, they're expensive, 2-3x this price. This is not an entry level scope. I did not get the logic analyzer portion of it. That's a fairly low cost option. For the cost of that option, you can, well, for less than that option, for less than this scope, those big name brand scopes I'm talking about, their probes alone cost as much as a scope for the logic analyzer. It does come with the digital triggering as well as the decoding for SPI bus, CAN bus, I2C, what else? Anyway, several of the buses. I'm going to list some of the features that it has. I just want to make this a real quick video though. I just want to talk about the, I'm a power supply engineer, audio engineer, I love audio stuff. The thing about a digital scope today, it just kicks the butt out of analog scopes. I used to love analog scopes, had lots of Tektronix scopes. My very first scope was a Kikasui many years ago. And you know, for years I've used 100, 200 megahertz scopes, maybe 500 megahertz. Nowadays, you know, we're spending 20 grand, 17 grand, and we're getting 500, you know, or 1 gigahertz scopes, wide bandwidth scopes. It's just, I don't know, you know, it's our budget, I guess. As far as what we need, I don't know if I ever use that. It's a slow scope. I move things around. It takes a while for things to happen. For years, people got away with 200 meg scopes, you know, 100 meg scopes. 100 meg scopes were used all over the place. So today, we're doing power supplies, some digital switching and stuff. It's still switching, you know, not that fast. So these scopes are still plenty capable to do that kind of work. And they have the phosphor, like I said. They have the deep memory. The other thing is refresh rate. So the scope, when it captures all that information, 1 gigasample per second, when it captures all that information, it has to do it again, then do it again. And this thing, I think, does up to 600,000 frames per second, something like that. It's a ridiculous number. I'll put a real number right here. But the point is this thing acts like an analog scope. It's so fast, it has a deep memory, it captures, you can capture a lot of things. A trigger on scopes, in the old days, that was a big selling point for me, Tektronix scopes, their triggering was awesome. These new scopes, digital triggering, so many options with the digital triggering. It's crazy. The storage, of course, where you can store the signals, you can freeze it, save it, print it. So I just hit the auto setup. A current probe, this Handtech probe hooked up, was 55 bucks. Crazy. I mean, it's crazy. At work, our current probes are probably a couple grand, $1,500, $2,500. They're probably closer to $2,500. 55 bucks. I have to hit the button a couple times, reset it before I start using it to degauss it. Big deal. You have the degauss ones at work too. They're digital. You just hit the button, you wait, and it does it. This one I have to hold it down. I hold it down a couple times just to make sure it's degaussed, and then away I go. Anyway, it's hard to think of these as entry level when they are far more capable than scopes a decade ago that all us professionals were using at work. So just because they're low cost, this thing outperforms the major brand scopes that cost $2,000–$3,000. Remember, deep memory, the refresh rate, the FFT on this is crazy. On the FFT, I'm going to show you some close-ups of this stuff, but the FFT, just go to this real quick. I'm at 4,000 points, 4,096 points right now. I can go down to 16,384 points. Wow. Some of those name brand scopes, the cheap ones, they're so-called entry-level scopes, which really are entry-level because they don't go down near as many points. They don't have the deep memory. They don't have the fast refresh rate. So, and then there's color. It's got the phosphor. I'm going to show you some close-up screenshots of this thing. But yeah, I wanted to keep this short just to essentially point out the main differences between this scope and the other scopes. It has lots of automatic measurements, has a few more, maybe 10 more than some of the other scopes. The trigger has the decode, the digital and decode buttons, options that you get, and with the deep memory and all that stuff. Where this thing, if you still use an analog scope because you really love them, use one of these for a day, and you'll want to push that aside and buy one of these things. Did not know Siglent, looked at some reviews on Amazon and YouTube, and decided to go for it. And I thought for a scope under 500 bucks or right around $500, I was willing to take the risk based on what I read. Yes, it's made in China, so is Tektronix. So that's not a negative to me. It depends on the company and their quality control and their designs and so on. When I pulled this out of the box, I've got some other reviews about when I pulled it out, I think, and my first impressions. I've got some reviews on the deep memory, so that I've got a few reviews on this scope just using it, but taking ripple measurements on a power supply, how you can use FFT. We need to learn how to use FFT more. It's so cool. And by the way, this particular scope, when you go to FFT, it has an auto set. So just like it has an auto set up here, you got an auto set right here as your FFT. So I'm going to show you some close-ups of the screen. It has the statistics mode. Actually, this is the cursor measurement mode right here. This little window here. I'll bring this, like I said, I'll bring this camera over and just take some close-ups of the screen so you can see it. But this big screen, high resolution, awesome scope. Under 500 bucks or under 1,000 bucks. I mean, this is 560 bucks on Amazon. Free shipping. It's just an amazing scope. I'm really happy with it. I did buy an O1, which I'm going to pull out. I haven't even powered it up, so I'm going to do a power on test here in the next couple days and tell you what I think of that. By the way, the reason I got the O1 was it has 14 bits resolution on the vertical scale. Almost every scope you get have, was it 10 bits? So 14 bits is an order of magnitude better. But this scope does come with 500 micro, half of, what is it, 500 microvolts per division setting. You can set this thing to. So let's see, I can spin it down and it go to 500 microvolts. So that's crazy. That's, kind of unheard of. So I think a Rygo scope does that too, but I think that's like $800. So even compared to the Rygo, this scope is just something you gotta give a serious look at. So, all right, keeping this short, bring the camera over, take some quick shots, give you some information here in text on this video, and I hope you like it. Hope this was helpful for you. I just, thought I wanted to throw this out there, working on this amplifier and just being so impressed with this scope. I'm going to keep it on the bench with the old one, and we're going to do some comparisons to see if those 14 bits really do buy anything. It was more expensive. It was around $1,000, just $1,100 I think. But it does, offer some things. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Let's keep it short. Okay, thanks guys. Give me a thumbs up. I'm going to keep the camera zoomed out so you can see the whole scope. But what I really like is this auto setup button. If you're not familiar with scopes and you're just not sure how to get going, you just push this guy and it auto sets, tries to find the best image. Okay, so I turned off one of my frequencies, so there's just one frequency going right now. The FFT is down here. I'm just going to hit the auto setup on this guy. So it centers it. It references it to a graticule line up here, and you can pull up the cursors. The cursors here, let me pull the cursor. Okay, I got the cursors on, and let's see, when I'm in cursor mode, I can go to manual, or I can go to track. So the cursors will track the signal. So the trigger works great. The FFT is not difficult to use. You have to kind of learn how to. I'm going to do some more videos on this, so let's keep this short. Hit this auto setup. It'll capture the signal up here. Now the FFT is not going to work too great at this lower scale here. When you hit this guy, it's not taking into account this. It's looking at this. Now also, one thing before we get away from the FFT, I just want to show you another real cool thing about this particular scope. I don't know if all of them do it. I understand from some reviews it sounds like maybe they don't. And then I just want to show you this display. Right now it's in full screen. So the full screen is showing your signal plus the FFT. It's using the full screen to do that. But what I want to show you is that you can also, which is unique, I don't know if other scopes do that. They may, but I just don't know of that. Most of them do the split screen where they show the FFT here and they show your signal here. But then what if you already know what your signal is, you just want to focus on that? Then you just come down here to exclusive and it shows FFT exclusively. Now again, I can go back to page 3 and go to auto set and get a better look at that. So that's FFT, and you can, anyway, so I just want to show you that and how cool the auto setup here is, how the auto setup here is for FFT. We can turn off that, go back to our signal. I've got a current waveform that's purple and the yellow waveform that's voltage. I purposely put the current inverted on, so put them out of phase with the voltage so you can see both waveforms. Anyway, this scope has the deep memory where you can come down here, right here, it's 7 meg, and that's because we have both channels on. If we turned off one channel, have to hit it twice. First time selects it, second time turns it off. Now if we go deep memory, it's automatically gone to 14 meg, the maximum cycles. Now right here, this little window here is for the cursors. Tells you where these boxes are, which I've got the vertical lines. So if I go to cursor menu, I've got this X2, X1 window. I can go to, let's see, I want to take it off track. When it's in track, it takes away a bunch of the options because it's tracking on its own. But say I've got XY window, it's got a Y window or X. So you go Y, it just shows you the cursors. I toggle between them with this. and then X, it gives me the 2X ones, and this window gives me X1, X2, and the difference between the two. When I go to Y, it's Y1, Y2, and the difference, and then when I go to XY, it shows me the X's and Y's. So really cool cursor. Then the measurement window, it gives you all these measurements that you can scroll around and turn on each one. You can clear them all. You can just say turn them all on. Okay, that's all measurements off. Oh, see, I have source channel 2 turned off, so it's telling me like, hey dude, you don't have anything to select. So I gotta go to channel 1 and then say all measurements on. So now it's giving me all measurements. So it gives you little messages when you do something wrong, telling you what you're doing. So there's all that stuff. Here's this little window with the cursors. There's another window you can see, statistics. And now it tells me the different measurements. See these measurements across here? Those are measurements I selected off of this display, and they show up down here. Now this window here that popped up, this is the statistics of that, the min, max, standard deviation, and it tells me how many counts it's doing, how many times it triggers. And as far as trigger menu goes, when I push setup, it has all these different triggers, and it tells you, it gives you, that's another awesome thing I love about the scope, is how it explains which each function. So you don't have to hit a help menu, because it just gives you help along the way. So it's the help's just built in automatically. So even if you think you know your scope, it kind of reminds you of things, I think. So I really like that. Deep memory, the refresh rate's super fast. Then it has this persistence thing. Now maybe I should turn off some of these windows, because it gets kind of hard to see all that stuff. I'll turn off the cursors too, and that window goes away. Now if I go to display here, I can see persistence, and I can turn it on. There's off, then it's infinite, and it's going to be hard here to see anything because nothing's really happening. If I turn on another wave, you can see how I've got a modulation going on here. So if I go persistence, that's 1 second. It kind of freezes things where, and I can adjust the bright, whoops, let me go down to infinite. So if I go to infinite, it starts to keep things on the screen, and I can turn on color grade, and the different colors you can tell how, you know, here where it's happening more often is this color, where it's less frequent, it's more blue or green. And you kind of see how that works out. And then there's an intensity too, where you can play with the persistence. I got the color grade on. Let me go to page 2. Here's the intensity level and the gradient and the transparency. So I can go to transparency, and it shows a little bar here how I'm changing it. Now that's actually my cursor windows. I think I'm changing transparency. So come over here, and then that changes that one. You can see how I'm changing it now. I don't use all these features enough, but you know, I'm also trying to go quick because I wanted to keep this short, and it's going longer than I wanted. So I'm just going to quit. I just wanted to show you the color display, the deep memory, and I'll list some of the things, but it also has this digital decode, has the protocols here where I2C, SPI-Bus, UART, CAN, and LIN or LAN. I'm not a digital guy, so I don't know. I know I2C or I2C. I call it in the old days. I think people call it I2C, or maybe it's called both, but maybe you guys can tell me. So, you know, it has a bunch of cool stuff down here. I'm going to learn how to use this myself, because I do use I2C. So I will kind of learn how to do this. It's got 7-bit address, but it does, and there's 10-bit, 7 or 10, I guess. Hey, I'm just hitting buttons right now, guys. Okay, there's data length, it's 8. Okay, so data and address. Okay, so you can set up your data and address. Here's the list. Display off. Here's the little window that comes up, display. So obviously I don't know what I'm doing on this. There's 4 lines. How many lines? I guess you can scroll this and put more, you know, I got 7 lines on there now. Formats: hex, ASCII, decimal, or binary. So the only thing about this scope, as I'm talking to you, I've gotten used to, is this this little multi-function, you know, control knob. It's kind of small in diameter, but it's very sensitive. So I've gotten used to just, you know, being careful with it, but it is very sensitive. But it also lets you see these up and down arrows. You can use this, and this back and forth. You can use this, so you can use these two to slowly choose anything you want, like when you have big menus, or you can use this that's a little bit more sensitive. But if that's too sensitive, you can always use these 2 controls. Anyway, sorry, might have gone longer than I wanted. USB port so you can save your files. I also downloaded a file from the internet, put it on my computer on my USB stick, come over here and updated the BIOS, or the, you know, and it was very easy to do. Online, when I did that, it gave me a little, you know, 3 or 4 step process to go through, and it was very easy to follow. It made perfect sense. Just, you know, it was easy to follow, I'm saying. So don't worry about that kind of stuff. I myself is a little worried. I hate to change BIOS and something and, you know, holds things up. But see this little update right here, firmware configure. So that's kind of the way you do it. Just go through utility and update, and there's a self-test, there's self-calibration, and so there's some connections on the back of this scope. I will leave the link for the Amazon. So if you are interested in this scope or any other scope, I appreciate it if you use the links. Give me a thumbs up if you like this, guys, and you'll see the O1 soon. Thanks for watching. There is one thing I wanted to point out I left off before, is it does have this sequence mode where, see right here, I have 14 meg deep memory. I can hit that button and it comes up and lets me go lesser memory if I want. There's another acquisition mode. I'm on fast. It has this interpolation that's sin X or interpolation X. So that's a cool feature. It has both those. Some scopes only have the interpolation sin X, so this has both. It also has, let me show you something else. Acquisition has the high res, the E-res. Okay, so what I wanted to point out though is it has this sequence mode where you can go into sequence and you can set segments, so that if you have a transient that happens with, let's say, a second, 5 minutes, an hour in between, the scope will just trigger and save each one of those guys in a segment that you can go back and play back later. So that's what they call sequence segmented memory, and it's a way that you can use your deep memory, but even better where you can save things that have even more time. Deep memory is great when you have a lot of stuff going on and you want to zoom in on something, but where things take a long, you have maybe a very detailed transient, but it occurs with a lot of time in between, they came up with this sequence. There's a segmented memory, which is really awesome. So that I wanted to point out. The other thing I wanted to point out is when you're on one of these scope channels, most scopes, they're 1 mega impedance. That's all, 1 meg. But this scope has the 50 ohm. So it has a little relay in there that switches between 1 meg and 50 ohms, which is way cool. Okay, otherwise you have to use this little 50 ohm adapter. It says 50 ohm 2 watts, and you put your probe into this and plug this in your scope. So that switches it to 50 ohms. Most scopes, I want to say most scopes under $1,000 will not have that 50 ohm. So that is a really cool thing Siglent offered in this scope. SDS1202X, 200 megahertz. It does come in a 4-channel. I believe it still comes in a 4-channel. You can get it with the logic signals, and it also comes with the function generator if you're interested in that. And that comes up here. They give you the button, but that doesn't do anything. And the digital option is this digital button. Again, the button's there, but it doesn't do anything. So I'm sure they just wanted to make one scope front, and it was probably less money to offer the buttons for every scope, even though that you don't have the option. So I'm okay with that. I got 2 buttons don't work. There you go. And just quickly, something I wanted to point out about the scope I like. It's very quiet fan. I can't even, really don't hear it running. I hear this power supply running. You can probably hear that as well. It's kind of noisy, but I don't even hear this running. But I like these really robust corners, these back rear feet on this thing. But that's what it looks like. Very nice amount of heft to it. Nice positive clicking feet. But I like those rubber feet in the back. When I push on it, they kind of grip, and if it's angled up, you know, they're designed to rock like that, so they work great. Really like the design of this scope. Just wanted to offer that to you because I've been so impressed with the scope. I'm getting ready to do an O1 review, and I thought, gosh, I really haven't said a lot about my scope, so just thought I'd give a quick review. And just want to point out the highlights of this scope compared to other scopes costing 2, 3, 4, 5x, you know, depending on what brand. But really, even with the Rigo, I think you have to spend close to double to match this scope. Screen size, deep memory, the FFT operation, the segmented memory, the refresh rate, really key features. Makes this scope work like an analog scope. Give me a thumbs up if you like this, guys, and you'll see the O1 soon. Thanks for watching.